Hello and welcome to Easy Piecy Quilts. Today we're going to do a really fun project. We're going to make this sweatshirt. When you download the templates from my website, easypiecyquilts.com, you will get 4 items. You will get the word quilter, you will get a small heart, you will get a medium heart, you will get a large heart template, which is what we're going to make together on this video. And you also get directions on how to make this star block for this sweatshirt beside me. This project is perfect for scraps. I made the quilt behind me and I had such beautiful fabric left over that I wanted to use it for this sweatshirt project. We are going to do something called crumb piecing or scrap piecing, and that's where you put pieces of fabric that are smaller together and sew them in a way that looks really scrappy. I think it looks really cool. And we get a bigger piece of fabric that we can then cut out and make a different shape, like the heart on my sweatshirt. The templates for this pattern are completely free. If you follow the link here, you'll go to my website, download the templates, and then we can get started. Here is the Quilter template for this project. You will notice that the letters are mirror image, and that is on purpose. And I will show you why we do that. Here is a scrap piece of fabric. This is Flower Fields by Art Gallery Fabrics. And I had some extra fabric when I did that quilt that is just so beautiful. I did not want to waste it. So I decided that I would do this project with it. So I have a little scrap piece of the floral. What I did was I adhered Heat and Bond Light to the back, and you will notice that when you peel it off, there is a shiny glue that is on the back of the fabric now. This Heat and Bond comes like this. There's like almost like a parchment paper side to it, and then there is a bumpy glue side. And what you do is you place it on the back of your fabric, and you press your iron down and adhere it. The manufacturer instructions come with the product as to how long to hold it, how hot to get your iron. And so that will stick it to the back of the fabric. Be careful, if it overhangs, you will end up with glue on your pressing mat. I've done that many times. But anyway, so you'll end up with this, and it is really nice because you can do 2 things that are really nice with this product. You can trace your numbers and letters and hearts on the back of the fabric, and it just makes it easier to cut out than if you're trying to pin this to the fabric and trying to cut out around the template. It's more difficult. So what I do is I cut out my letters, and then I hold them down on the back of the Heat and Bond, and I trace them. And it doesn't have to be exact, but the oopsie, if it moves, then just stick it back on where it was, and go around the letter. And then I will cut this out. I cut out the outside of the Q. Now we're going to cut the inside. I usually just fold it in half and make a cut there. It is very important to have nice, sharp, small scissors for this project, and I absolutely love these. They are inexpensive, they are sharp, they are small. The point on the end of the scissors is nice and sharp and easy to get into these little areas where the corners of the letters, it just makes it really easy. And then they come in a multi-pack, which if you're anything like me, you can never find where your scissors are. In the last place you set them down, they never seem to stay there. So it will give you several different scissors. That makes it nice because you're always going to be able to trip over a pair. So here we have the Q cut out, and like we talked about, it is backwards, and I'll just use this to set it on so you can see it a little bit better against this dark background. But the other thing that's really nice about this product is it allows you to press and glue down your letters on your fabric. So let's get a piece of fabric that's a little bit lighter so we can see. So you can take another piece of fabric, or in this case, your sweatshirt, and you can put the letters exactly where you want them, and they don't move around a whole lot with this glue on the back. Even before you press it, it's kind of a little bit sticky. So it stays in a nice position, and then you just press down on that with the warm iron and it will adhere it to the fabric, the underlying fabric. And that way when you do your stitching around the outside of your lettering, it makes it so easy. So here you can see the lettering, and like we talked about before, we cut it out as a mirror image so that when we flipped it over, the letters will be in the right orientation. And then I pressed these letters down onto the sweatshirt, and then I stitched around them. I used a blanket stitch, if you can see that. I'll bring it a little bit closer in. There's a blanket stitch. And that is as easy as this portion of the sweatshirt is. So the other thing that we're going to go over during this project is how to do crumb piecing. It's string piecing is with scraps, and it's also more straight lines I would associate string piecing with. But crumb piecing, or scrap piecing, I've heard it called, is great to use up all of these scraps that you have from another project. And what you do is you just start out, it will give you a finished product like this, where you have all different fabrics and little pieces, and it looks really scrappy and cute. And we are going to make a little bit bigger heart than this one without lettering on this other sweatshirt. So what you do is you start out with, well, I've already done some here, is you just start out with 2 pieces of fabric, any 2 pieces. And we are going to sew these 2 pieces together. They do not have to be the same size, but let's start there. So we've got our 2 scraps sewn together, and you just flip this open. I'm going to go ahead and just roll this seam to flatten it. I think sometimes it's a little faster and easier when you're doing quick seams to use a roller. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to add a 3rd piece. So I will go ahead and sew this seam here. Here's our 3rd piece sewn on, and I'm just going to go ahead and roll that seam as well. And I think it looks nicer if your scraps are a little bit smaller. So you can go ahead and start cutting this down a little bit so that your pieces are a little bit smaller. And especially if you're going to have a smaller applique, you're going to want to have the pieces inside it be a little bit smaller so that you can show off more, different sizes of fabrics, or excuse me, different prints of fabrics. So you can do this. It does not have to be straight by any means. It'll give it character to be a little off and different angles and things like that. So then you can grab another piece of fabric, and we'll just line up these 2 sides of the fabric, and let's sew that line. Let's sew this seam. So you can get the idea of this. You just keep cutting and pressing and attaching new scrap pieces until you get a larger piece of fabric. So you're essentially making your own fabric out of scraps. You just keep going. So we're going to put this one along here and sew that. We're going to sew this seam right here. So you get the idea. We are just building more and more pieces, putting little pieces together until we get a larger piece of fabric that we can go ahead and use our template, our heart template for. So I'm going to aim at getting a piece of fabric that we can cut this template out of. All right, we've gotten our piece large enough for our heart template, and I cut a piece of heat and bond. This one's a little bit off because I use this for another project, but regardless, we'll get our heart out of it. So what I am going to do is I'm going to take the back of this fabric. I am going to fuse the heat and bond onto it so that I know my heart will fit. How did I do that? There we go. So I know that the heart will fit on there. And once I have this fused, we will trace this and cut it. Here we have our sweatshirt, and I have a 24-inch ruler, 24 by 6 inch ruler, and I use this ruler every day, every day. But this ruler is great because it spans the top of the shirt for the most part, or the sweatshirt. So it's very easy to lay across and kind of center it in between the sleeve seams and be able to center your heart or words or whatever you need to do on your sweatshirt. So I have that, this heart centered, and maybe scooch it just a smidge this way. And we have the heat and bond on the back. So usually what I do to get the heat and bond off is I just pinch an edge and it will peel off. And that gives us this whole back of, with all these seams and everything, have a glue coating on them. So I'll go ahead and place this back down. We'll have to kind of readjust it here just to make sure that we're centered. The point. Okay, that looks good. I think usually about between 3 and 4 inches off of the collar is where I placed my other lettering and hearts. And so all you're going to do is take your warm iron and press that on. Be careful if you do not get a sweatshirt that is all cotton, 100% cotton or mostly cotton. It has a lot of polyester or synthetic fabrics in it. You can melt or put a mark in the front of your sweatshirt with the iron. So just be careful about what kind of fabric you're pressing onto so that you know what the heat setting should be for your iron. But now you can see that our heart is on the sweatshirt, and that's going to make it really easy for us to do the next step, which is sew down the edges of the applique. So you'll notice that I took the table off of my sewing machine, and that is so that I have an area that I can place the neck or the bottom of the sweatshirt through. But we definitely don't want to be sewing through both sides and sew our shirt closed. So we've got to be able to get the either the neck or the bottom, probably the bottom would be easier because it's a lot bigger, through our sewing machine. And the other thing you'll notice is that I have a presser foot on here that's got a large opening, and it allows me to see what I'm doing when I am going around this applique. I like this foot. I have another foot that I use sometimes, but it has to be able to go back and forth. I'm going to be using a blanket stitch for this. You can use a straight stitch. You can use another decorative stitch. You can use whatever stitch you want to put your applique on. But I am just going to start this and kind of give you an idea of how to sew this down. So I just go right along the edge of the fabric, and it kind of grabs the fabric as it goes. And I don't have a stabilizer underneath this applique. I didn't find that I really needed it with the heat and bond. It kind of acts like a stabilizer. So now we've got done with that side, so I'm going to just turn my fabric in the needle kind of around this point here, and then we're off we go to the other side. And that's really all there is to it. We're just going to go around the whole heart, and once I'm done, I'll show you the up close finished. Here is the finished heart, and you can see that it's nice and scrappy with lots of different fabrics. It adds character and texture. I just went around the outside of this heart, but you could certainly go along the seams to hold the heart down to the fabric. This Heat and Bond Light, it will wash, but if you wash it a lot, it's probably going to pull up a little bit. So it might be nice to go around some of the seams and kind of hold that down and add a little bit more texture. The other thing is this is raw edge applique, which is okay. It's going to fray a little bit. It's going to give a little bit of texture and character. But since we did use the heat and bond on the back, and the heat and bond is fused to the fabric, you're going to get a lot less fraying than you will with something that doesn't have that. And then here's the up close of the star. And the star is, like I said before, it's just a block. And you can use any block. And this is 8.5 by 8.5, so that's a nice size for the sweatshirt. You could even take this center portion and use the crumb piecing that we just learned. And you can use any section of a block, any piece, with crumb piecing. So you could crumb piece the middle of this to add more detail and then finish the star. You could cut any kind of template or shape out of the crumb piecing and add it to your shirt. So that's something that you can really be creative with and is a lot of fun. This I did really simple stitching. It's just a straight stitch all the way around, and then I did some straight stitching around the inside of the block to hold the block to the sweatshirt. I hope you had fun making this sweatshirt with me. I think they turned out really cute. Send me a picture and tag me on your Instagram or Facebook. I'd love to see your finished sweatshirt. I've put together a list of items that we used to make this project on my Amazon storefront. If you follow the link here, you can check this out, make it easier to find some of these items. And I hope if you found that this video helpful, you'd be willing to give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and we'll see you next time.